Now, I want to share a few things with you tonight. Kind of go back to our last team connection, our leaders connection that we had. We called this a year to grow, didn't we? You remember that? We called this a year to grow. And we specifically had a phrase that we were throwing out. And what was interesting about this phrase is more than any phrase that I think I've thrown out to the congregation, this one came back at me. I heard people talking about it. And it was simply this idea that we know we've won at River City Community Church when more people are passionately following Jesus. That simple idea that really a win for us, our end game, the vision. You want to know the vision of River City Community Church? That's it. More people passionately following Jesus. And I had so many people quote that back to me. And it's so simple and clear. We started having a conversation around our leadership directors table, and we're like, you know what? That's what a mission statement is supposed to be, right? Why don't we incorporate that into our mission statement? So we talked and we kind of hammered with it a little bit, and the elders, we threw it by them, and everybody seemed to love this idea of adapting our mission statement to where we want to propose to you and we want to present to you tonight. The mission of River City Community Church is very simply, more people living real life by passionately following Jesus. More people living real life by passionately following Jesus. We understand we've got our journey to real life, 5 key decisions, the 5 decisions on the journey to real life: follow, connect, grow, serve, share. All of our small groups have 5 behaviors that they're living wrapped around those 5 key decisions: follow, connect, grow, serve, share. But at the end of the day, what we recognize as our win, our mission, the reason we're here, is to see more people living real life by passionately following Jesus. That's it. Guys, that's what every ministry is about. Every single thing we do. And what was so beautiful about simplifying and clarifying that is now everything we do, and I really want you to listen to me on this because I want you to do this, everything we do, we evaluate by that standard. Does it help more people live real life by passionately following Jesus? Is it the best way to accomplish more people living real life by passionately following Jesus? We made a decision this year, and the whole team who's involved knows about it, but some of you guys may not. We have done a camp every year called Royal Family Kids Camp, and we wanted to continue doing a camp for kids who are really in difficult situations. But because of some of the framework of the ministry of Royal Family, and because of the nature of working with the different government agencies, we were so restricted in what we were doing, we made the decision, because we looked at Royal Family in light of this idea. How does it do at helping more people live real life by passionately following Jesus? And to be honest with you, for the investment and the resources and the people and all the energy that we put into it, it was not very easy. It was hard. And so we made a simple decision, and we spoke with Royal Family. It was a wonderful conversation, but we just said we're going to go a different direction. And we are now partnering with a local inner city ministry, and we're doing a camp called Real Life Kids Camp. And we're doing it with a group of kids who our youth already go on Saturdays, on Hands and Feet Saturdays. We're doing it with that group of kids. And we're going to do a camp for them. This year we're doing kind of a half-day camp, then half overnight, and then next year we're going to be ready to go full camp. And the beauty is, the next week, we'll be able to go and continue discipleship with those kids. We know they're connected with a Christian ministry where they're being discipled, and we're partnering with that ministry. And that's so much a better fit for us and for our mission of seeing more people live real life by passionately following Jesus. And so, yes, someone is excited about that. Thank you. But do you understand how that works? It's not that Royal Family was bad, it's just, okay, we can make an improvement. We can be better at what we do. More people living real life by passionately following Jesus. Think about your ministry. What do you have in your ministry that you go, well, maybe we love it and it's great, but does it really help us achieve more people living real life by passionately following Jesus? If it does, man, turn it up a notch. Take it to the next level. But if it doesn't, you know, what we do with Sacred Cows around here, we make sacred hamburgers and they taste good. Tell you. You know, we don't want any sacred cows. What's sacred is Jesus, his word. Our mission, which is really just fulfilling his great commission, more people living real life by passionately following Jesus. So I want you to begin to kind of let that be part of your spirit. And I want you to have that as a practical, this is what our vision is. This is what our mission is. This is what a win is. Now, I also talked to you last time. I want to give you an update. We set some very simple goals. Remember? We talked about goals, and I want to give you a report on how we're doing. Because what good is it to set goals? We had a conversation about how goals focus us. They point us in the right direction. They remind us first things first. They protect us from all the kind of peripheral things that can take our attention and actually suck the energy from the main things. And so while our directors and leaders and pastors have lots of different goals, we shared 3 particular goals with our congregation and with you guys that we wanted to monitor. The first one was very simply, we wanted to see 30% more people gathered to worship and hear the gospel every weekend. 30% growth in adult weekend attendance, which is more people gathering to worship and to hear the gospel. That's our desire. We believe the Lord put that on our hearts. We've been praying for that, and that's something that we just believe we're supposed to do. And so I just want to report to you that as of the end of this first quarter of this year, we're up in that number 20% over the last quarter of 2013. Isn't that awesome? That's huge, guys. And you know, we did some very specific things. We did a mail out to the community. We had some special series. We worked very hard. And I think God honored that. And so we're very, very grateful for that. And that is a huge celebration. And we got to keep going because we're not there yet. But I told you, we're already planning a celebration at the end of the year to celebrate this and the other goals that God has for us. A second goal that I talked to you guys about is that we wanted to see 70% of Sunday attendance in groups. 70% of the Sunday attendance number. Now, let me clarify that. It's actually 100%, but we've broken that up into 2 years. We really feel like realistically, and even with a huge faith step, we wanted to see 70% by the end of this year. And guys, that's a big faith step. And then we want to see 100% by the end of 2015. So we broke it up over 2 years. Our desire was to see 70% of our adult weekend attendance number. And it's important that's a number because, you know, we never have everybody here at the same time. But that's just a baseline number. We're saying, okay, if this is the folks who are gathering on a weekend, we want to see 70% of that number in growth groups. People connected in community, people in discipleship, those 5 behaviors that every group is practicing, that every group is challenging people in. And as of right now, as of the end of this month, we're at 58%. 58%, which is huge. That's an awesome number. 58% of adults attendance participating in growth groups. That's one, guys, that needs your prayer. I want to challenge you. We got to pray because this is, you know, a lot of people will come and attend on a Sunday. They don't know if they want to get in a growth group. And so we're starting some mid-sized groups to help be intermediate steps. We're trying to do some things to help make it easy to take that next step. We wanted this to be a place where it is difficult to not be connected. Because that's how we roll. I don't think we're wired to keep people like that in just one big group. That's not River City. We are all about relationships, first with God, then with one another. And so this is a key, and I'm going to ask you to join us in prayer. Because to be honest with you, that's fundamentally our real core congregation, those people in those groups. That's who we are. The folks on Sunday, we're trying to reach, we're trying to draw in, and I am so grateful for them. But those people in groups, that's the core of River City Community Church. And so I want to ask you to really keep these guys in prayer. That Mark McLemore and Willie Mayfield work together to really try to work that. They work with the coaches and the directors of the small group ministry, so pray for that team because they've got some serious work to do before the end of the year, and I believe they're going to do it, and I just want us to lift them up in prayer. A third that I talked to you about is people professing commitments to Christ. People acknowledging, you know, people make commitments to Christ all the time, and I'm talking about they listened, they took the time, they filled out a card, they identified themselves and said yes. Our goal was to be 30% over the amount of people who profess faith in Christ, commitments to Christ, 30% more than last year. And you're like, you know, how can we know? The Holy Spirit has to do that. I know. But I just want to tell you, last year we had 183 in the whole year. So far this year, at this point in April, we have 152 so far. We are way ahead of the curve, way ahead. And guys, let me just say to you, it's not the Lord I'm worried about. He's God. He's good, right? It's us I'm worried about, because we're just people, and we can get distracted. We can get caught up in, just having church. And I just want to say to you, we are not just doing church here. This is not just about a meeting. This is the one hope for the needs and the brokenness in our world. This is it. The gospel, the mission of Jesus Christ that he gave to the church. What we're doing is the most important mission in the world. And I'm just saying to you, what these things do is they help us focus and help our ADD selves, which is not bad. I love ADD. It's gotten me through so many wonderful things in life. It's helped me make it through some really boring meetings. Right now, I'm thinking about something totally different. Stop it. Was that Kurt? How bad does it have to be when Kurt Foyle swipes at you from the audience? We thought you were out there praying, Kurt. Man, come on. I just got to tell you, the problem is not God, it's us. And what saying that these are things that are most important things that God wants us to follow, what it does is it keeps us on track. And it reminds us, folks, we're on a mission here. Please don't ever just get caught up doing church. I didn't give my life to this so we could do church. Even saying it, and I'm a pastor, saying doing church just sounds miserable. But seeing lives change, seeing hundreds, even thousands of people give their lives to Jesus, seeing families restored, now that I can give my life to. One of the guys who got saved on Easter sent Mark McLemore a letter, and it was powerful, but it was heartbreaking, because the guy just unpacked the brokenness in his family and the stuff, and just, we want to really follow Jesus, and we need help. And I'm just like, Mark just came away like, this is why we do this. And he shared that letter with me, and I'm like, yep, this is why we do this. This is it. And folks, there are hundreds of those all around our city. Every week, I have someone come up to me and says, we are so glad we found this place because we were lost. And I mean, I just don't want you ever to take what you do lightly. God is doing amazing things, and he wants to use you. So I just want to ask you, as we think about kind of our mission, we think about these goals, we think about what we do in our ministries, I want to ask you to pray. Because goals aren't about kind of, blowing our horn and saying what we did. Goals are about saying, God, we think this is what you want us to pursue, and so we're going to be obedient. And I want you to pray for that. I want you to pray for this fellowship. I want you to pray for lost people. I want you to pray for this community. Pray for our small groups, that they'll open up and receive people, because, man, people get in discipleship, they begin growing in community, they go deeper, and it's game over then. It's game over. That's when the seed, has fallen on the good soil. And when someone's in community, they're in the Word, they're growing. Now we're not afraid about the birds by the path. We're not afraid of the thorns, to use Jesus' illustration. I want to ask you to focus. I want you to use our mission statement that I just shared with you. More people living real life by passionately following Jesus. I want to hear that. I want you to say that. I want you to tell your teams that. And I want you to use that to focus. I want you to use these goals to focus. Wait a minute, this is what we're all doing together. We all have different assignments, but we're all doing something together. And this is what we're doing together. And I'm going to ask you, and what these goals have helped me do better this year than I did any year previously, is to be intentional. Just be intentional. Don't just drift. Don't just do church. Don't just do your ministry the way you've always done it. Be intentional. And I think God's going to do some amazing things for us. Now, tonight we have something very special for you. We're not just doing construction here, okay? We want to talk to you about one of the biggest jobs in every one of our ministries. There is nobody here who's exempt. It really is. It's recruiting, equipping, and placing new leaders in ministry. That's one of the biggest jobs. And great kingdom movements throughout church history have always beginning with Jesus Christ himself, with this focus on leadership, recruitment, development, discipleship, and ministry. Questions come up like, well, okay, who's qualified to lead? What can I have them do? How will I know when they're ready for greater responsibility? Well, we've been working on a tool that's going to help every single ministry here answer those questions. David Henning has been leading the director team through an extensive development process, and we want to present it to you tonight. So would you join me in welcoming Pastor David Henning? Go get him, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate that. As we were talking about the ladder and trying to work on and develop this, one of the questions that we really had to think about was, why do we need a ladder? Sean addressed that briefly, but whenever you think about a volunteer, if they don't have clear knowledge of the expectations that we have, they cannot meet those expectations. And failure to clearly communicate expectations not only frustrates the volunteer, but it frustrates the leader as well. So we want to make sure that everyone knows what the expectations are. Volunteers are way more likely to drop out and quit serving if they don't know what the expectations are. And as pastors, we regularly hear things like, I didn't know you wanted me to be here early every week that I'm scheduled to serve. I didn't know you expected me to come to your training every month. I had no idea when I started working with youth that you expected me to like teenagers. Now, I made that one up, but it's probably not far from the truth. I'm just leading kids, and I come to your training. You mean I still have to come to Leaders Connection? Yes. If you're a leader at River City Community Church, we expect you to come to Leaders Connection. So thank you guys for being here tonight. There are a number that aren't here. We appreciate you committing this time and being here for this tonight. Now, how crazy can people be to ask the kind of questions or to not understand what the expectations are, to make statements like those? They should, and everyone should, just intuitively know what we expect, right? You don't really have to communicate well. Well, of course, that's kind of crazy. We have to communicate, and one of the things that I think we probably haven't done really well is to communicate what our expectations and what the requirements are for serving. Now, why should we expect people to know what we want them to do if we don't tell them? So tonight what we want to do is just take a few minutes, and we're going to communicate the leadership ladder to you. So I've asked three of our pastors, Mark, Willie, Darna, to help me with this. So why don't y'all come on out? And you'll see the leadership ladder up there on the screen. You can't read it, and that's okay. We knew that you wouldn't be able to. We want you to just see the symbol of the ladder, and at each level, there are requirements for every person serving at that level. And so I've asked Darna to first of all just talk about level 1. What are the requirements to serve at level 1?
Okay, a level 1 volunteer needs to be supportive of River City Community Church, needs to attend a weekend service at least 50% of the time, have appropriate gifts, abilities, and capacity for the position, attend appropriate ministry training, show up on time, and follow volunteer policies. Now, at level 2, it's all of those that are the level 1 requirements, plus this, very important, have made a profession of faith in Christ. If that seems unusual that we would have volunteers that haven't professed faith, it's because we acknowledge that for some people, their journey to faith in Christ comes through way of serving, and we make room for them. We want to draw the lost, so we want to have places for the lost to get plugged in while they're on that path to discovery.
What would be an example of a level 1 role in your ministry?
Okay, in the creative arts area, we have a number of positions that we feel comfortable allowing someone to fill at the level 1 level, someone who has not yet made that profession of faith. For example, a musician, or one of our audio techs, or a lighting tech, or a camera operator. Now, at level 2, things change. And this may sound like a little bit of a double standard, but it's not. For a musician, you can come in at level 1. For a singer, you have to come in at level 2 and have made that profession of faith. And the reason for that is simple. You're communicating. and we want to communicate with authenticity. And so you have to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. You have to have a basic understanding of worship, what we do and why we do it. And so a musician is not communicating. They're not verbally communicating, and so we've allowed for musicians. And musicians need a lot of grace anyway, and we want this to be a place where professional musicians feel comfortable, and so we want to make room for them to come and share their gifting, because that's what they want to do. When they show up, if they're at all open to the church, they want to know, okay, where can I play? Where can I get involved? Techies are like that too. Where can I get involved? And so we don't want to just, cut them off at the door and say, well, you need to get further down the road in your faith walk before we'll, let you play drums. So we've made room for that. But for those that are communicating vocally on a microphone in the choir, you're communicating the message. You're communicating deep spiritual things through song, and you have to have made a profession of faith.
All right. Thank you, Darna. Before we go to the next level, is it surprising to you that we ask anybody who is serving level 1, level 2, to be supportive of the church or attend 50% of the time? I mean, it just makes sense that if a person wants to serve, that they attend enough to know the church and to support the ministry, okay? So those are level 1 and 2 requirements. Mark, tell us about level 3.
Level 3, we want you to meet all the level 2 requirements and then attend a weekend service at least 75% of the time. So, if you're leading people, leading groups, being here 3 out of 4 Sundays keeps you on track with what's going on, with what we're doing, and keeps you current on that. So that's important. We want you to be a member of the church, attend Leaders Connection if you're in some kind of leadership role, and then attend the River City Leadership Development class, which we're going to, it's coming soon.
Leadership Development class is under construction now. That's partly why we have the ladders. But that'll be coming soon, and everybody at level 3 will be asked to go through that class. All right?
So,
what about an example?
Some examples of, for instance, we want people to be a member of the church. If you're leading, growth group, study group, life group, activity group, if you're teaching people in a Bible study, we want you to be a member because we want you to not only understand what we believe, what our doctrines are, but also understand the mission and the vision, the values we have, and our culture. How we do ministry is important. Not just doing ministry, but how we do ministry is really important to know and understand. And being a member is really, an important part if you're going to lead people.
All right, thank you, Mark. There are really only 2 things that you can't do at River City if you're going to volunteer, and that's lead and teach. So that's why you have to be at that 3rd level to do those. All right? Willie,
Okay,
level 4.
Level 4 is to meet all the requirements of level 3 down, as well as demonstrate observable spiritual maturity. So this is a person who is clearly walking with the Lord. They're a mature believer. Demonstrate ownership of ministry. So they're not just showing up and having someone tell them what to do. They have ownership of whatever it is that they're leading. They have ownership of it. Support the church by giving the tithe. So we're asking at this level that this person would be at a place where they're not just giving to the church financially, but they've committed to give 10% of their finances to the church to support the ministry of the church. And number 5, attend all journey classes if they haven't already done so. Most people at this level would have already done that, but just to make sure that they've gone through the process. And an example of a person at level 4 would be our small group directors, our small group coaches. Say in the guest services ministry, if we had a service coordinator who was coordinating a bunch of different leaders, the point of level 4 is you're leading leaders. You're not just a leader, you're leading leaders, and you're giving leadership on a much broader scale.
Yeah. All right, Willie, thank you very much. So you can see that as a person steps up and begins to volunteer here, there's a lot of room down at that lower rung for a person who's even lost to join in and begin to serve. But as you step up that ladder, the greater the responsibility, the greater the requirement. And so we want you to be aware of that, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But the first The first point I want to make about how this tool can serve to improve the health of our volunteer system is that it provides clarity. Now, I know the first thing y'all are thinking is, I didn't even know we had a volunteer system. So how can we make it healthy? The word clarity, it's key. I talked just a moment ago about clearly communicated expectations. There's a couple of ways that this leadership ladder helps to provide clarity. The first thing is that it's going to provide clarity to every person who's already serving. Tonight, you should leave here without any doubt about what the expectations or the requirements are for the role or roles in which you serve. Just so there's no misunderstanding, I want to make this clear. These are not requirements. This is not a ladder or a tool to eliminate people. Not at all. This is a tool to help people see what the opportunities of service are, what the requirements are for serving at that level, and to help them grow and mature in Christ. That's why you see, as the responsibility increases, the requirements increase. If you haven't met the requirements for the level of your role, now that you know what those requirements are, you don't have to panic. All you do is simply get with your coach or pastor, whoever it is that you report to in your ministry, acknowledge the requirements that you have not yet met, then create just a simple plan for meeting those requirements. And then just keep serving, okay? So what I'm trying to say is, we're not eliminating anybody. If you haven't met, you're not meeting those requirements, that's cool. We love you, and we knew that would be the case. We just want to encourage you to get with your coach, get with your pastor, and begin working to meet those requirements. The ladder will also provide clarity for every person considering the possibility of serving. The ladder informs potential volunteers of the requirements before they ever agree to serve. Now, wouldn't you say that's a good thing? Somebody to know what's being asked of them before they begin? I'm sorry if for any of you in the past there have been times where you've been unclear, where we've not been clear about what the expectations were. But hopefully from this time forward, that'll change and you'll be very clear about what is expected of you. Okay, this is going to be a challenge. I had a prop man who was going to come help me, and he bailed out. Oh, look at this. Now here, get this guy a candy bar. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, go up and just kind of tip it over. There's a candy bar right there in front of yeah, here we go. Not the Three Musketeer, because no, I'll give him that. Yes! Accountability. Perfect, thank you. No, just that one for now. So, service, you might get another candy bar if you come back. Service above and beyond, that's what it is. The leadership ladder provides for healthy accountability. It was just a couple of months ago, I was feeling really overwhelmed and doing a lot of stuff and just not certain if everything that I was doing was really what I had been asked to do by Sean and the job description that he gave me. And I was pretty frustrated at the time because everything that I was doing was good stuff. It was stuff that needed to get done. But was it really what I, as the executive pastor, was supposed to be doing? So I pulled out my job description and I sat down and I started reading through it line by line, and I started highlighting the important things that I needed to be doing. And I was going to bring it up here and show it to you, but I didn't know if you'd be able to see the highlights. As it turned out, Sean thinks everything on there is important. So, but I looked through that and I quickly realized that all this stuff that I was doing, though it was important, not all of it was really the job that I had been asked to do. So it was a time of personal accountability. And so by looking at my job description, I knew what I was supposed to be doing. And that's what this ladder is going to do in terms of requirements for volunteers. It's going to help everybody to be able to do have personal accountability. If they don't know for sure what they're supposed to be doing to meet the requirements to serve in a role, all they have to do is pull out the copy of the ladder for their ministry. And you'll see whenever we break out later tonight, there will be a ladder for every ministry in the church. And you'll see that in addition to the requirements that are overarching church-wide, there will be additional requirements within the ministry. And that will make a lot of sense to you as you begin meeting in your huddles and talking about that. The ladder also becomes a tool for relational accountability. If you're serving in a role and you're not living up to what you've committed to in terms of the requirements, in terms of a position description that your leader provides to you for the role, once you have that, then it really makes communication about that and accountability within that role much, much easier and simpler. Just to give you an example, we said that at different levels, there's different attendance requirements, 50% and 75%. So if as a leader, you are on the weekend regularly missing someone in your area of ministry, they're not showing up here, then you don't have to get frustrated and mad at them. All you have to do is have a conversation. It can be, hopefully not waiting until the next time you see them, but you can schedule time for a cup of coffee or something. And you just sit down and say, hey, Joe, I've been missing you over the past few weeks at church. Is everything okay at work and at home? And then just pause and let them respond. And then you just continue the dialogue, and you can say, because of the agreement that we made, that attendance in the role that you're serving is 50%, I just want to make sure everything was okay. And it really doesn't have to be a confrontational experience, either with a pastor to one of you or one of you to people who serve within your area of ministry. Just conversations, just healthy conversations. So, the second way the ladder helps improve the health of our volunteer system is that it provides for healthy accountability. I think I can make it up this ladder, Jason. I'm going to try it. The third way that the ladder provides for improved health in our volunteer system is that it, drum roll, anybody got a drum? Drum roll. Can I do it? Can I do it? Okay, here we go. What is it? Opportunity, all right. The ladder is going to serve to provide opportunities for service. And what you may be thinking is, well, how is that possible? I saw a ladder and all I saw were a bunch of rules. Well, don't look at it that way. There are expectations, there are requirements. But opportunity for service is going to come as a result of a process that we're walking through and you're going to be a part of tonight. Let me ask you this question. If next weekend every person at River City that showed up said, I want to volunteer, I want to serve, do you think that we would have places to put them all? Let them start serving? Who said, oh yeah? What ministry do you work in? All right. Well, does everybody else think we've got places for them to serve? Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, immediately you think, yeah, there's lots of places for them to serve. But If you haven't identified a specific role for a person to commit to, then they have no place to serve. Let me just walk you through, just briefly, what we've been doing as a team to help create more opportunities for service. And I think you'll see as we go through this that in order for a person to have a place to serve, there has to be an identified role for them. So here's what we did. I asked each of our pastors to just identify every volunteer role in their ministry that currently exists today and put it on the ladder. All your level 1 positions, level 2, level 3, and level 4 positions. Now, whenever they did that, there are two things that happen. First of all, it allows you to see all the roles that you actually have. And whenever you look at those positions, you can then see the corresponding requirements for serving in those roles. And up to this point, as we've said, that hasn't been clearly communicated. So that's the first thing it does. Second thing it does is it answers questions like, do I have any level 1 positions for a person to serve in? If we don't have level 1 positions for a lost person or some marginal church attender to connect in, then it's going to be very difficult for them to be a part of our volunteer ministry, because as you move up that ladder, there are other requirements involved. So we want to have lots of opportunities. So it helps to answer that question. Do I have any first serve opportunities? Is there any place for a lost person to serve in my ministry? Then the next thing we did after we laid out all those existing roles was I asked them to begin creating new opportunities for service. Taking existing roles and beginning to break down the tasks of those roles into new opportunities for serving. Have y'all ever seen a sign out in our parking lot that says something like, first-time guests, turn on your flashers for preferred parking? Some of you have? Okay. There are 2 signs out there every weekend that say that. So there is, I'm assuming, a sign guy somewhere. I never see him, but he's got to be here because those show up every weekend, who takes those out of storage here, gets them out, puts them in place, goes back, picks them up later, puts them in storage, and I don't know if they ever get cleaned or not. But that role right there, you could break down into multiple roles. You could have one person whose responsibility it is to get here early and get the signs out of storage. Another person who arrives, gets the signs, puts them in place. Another person who picks the signs up. You see, the person who puts them out's got to be here early to get them out before anybody comes. But is he necessarily going to be here at the end of the day to bring them in? So you could create another person for a guy to bring those signs in. And then a fourth, or another role that could be created is somebody to clean the signs once a month. Make sure they look fresh as our guests drive up and look at them. Now, what if, I think that's 3 new roles, 4 new roles. What if, rather than that team of people serving every week from now until eternity, what if you had an A and a B team? Or a team 1, team 2, or a red and a green team, whatever you wanted. Then you've gone from 1 position to 9 opportunities for people to serve. What about life group leaders? If you've got a life group leader who is doing everything in their group, number one, they're just putting a lot of responsibility on themselves that they don't need to carry, but there are plenty of ways to break down that life group leader role where a number of people in the group could be a part of serving. Some groups do this really well. I think probably a lot don't, but you can have an assistant facilitator, someone who once a month facilitates the meeting in your stead. You could have a fellowship coordinator. You could have an outreach coordinator. You could have someone who coordinates the prayer time, and they may offer different ways to pray. Maybe they send out the prayer list. So there are lots of different ways you could do that. So virtually any role that we have here, you could take it, look at all the responsibilities that they have, what are all the tasks, and then you could begin to just break that down and see what opportunities exist there that someone else could now step in and be a part of. All right? Your pastors have made a great start creating a number of new roles in their areas of ministry, but now they're going to ask you to step in and be a part of that as well and help them try to identify as many new opportunities for serving as possible. The more opportunity we create, the more volunteers we will attract. Now, I know for a lot, if not most of you, that's going to seem counterintuitive, especially for those of you who approached me yesterday and said, I had volunteers who didn't show up today. You're just trying to figure out how to get those folks to show up. Or if you have positions that are yet to be filled, then you may be thinking the same thing. How in the world can creating more opportunities help us to get more people engaged in serving? There once was a day, I think, whenever people knew what I mentioned earlier, that with greater responsibility comes greater accountability. And I think we still have a lot more of those people around today than we think we do. But whenever we begin to break down our volunteer positions and identify more opportunities for people to serve, I think people aren't going to run from higher levels of expectation or accountability. We're not going to be able to run off good people who are truly interested in pursuing their relationship with Christ and wanting to do what Jesus said he came to do, which was to serve. Pastor Nelson Searcy, he founded the Journey Church in New York City back in 2002. 2011, they started another campus in Boca Raton, Florida. I'm assuming so he can winter in Florida and summer in New York. But that church has grown extremely well. They now have over 1,200 in attendance, so comparable in attendance to what we have on a weekend. But here's something I wanted every one of you to hear tonight, because I knew what Sean was going to say about our goal to have 70% of our people connected into a growth group. At the Journey Church, they have more than 100% of their adult weekend attendance plugged in to groups every semester. And at first, you think, how in the world is that possible? How can you have more than 100%? Well, as Sean said, we don't have everybody show up here who attends River City on the same Sunday. So whenever you look at the numbers of people that show up on a weekend and you begin to multiply those, we have a lot more than 1,400 that attend River City. So Nelson Searcy and his executive pastor, Carrick Thomas, have created a volunteer system as well as 7 other church systems. And one of the things that they developed within this system was a volunteer ladder. So this idea is not original with us. They have trained hundreds of pastors and executive pastors in all these church systems for several years. And many churches are experiencing a huge growth in their volunteer base simply by implementing a ladder that tells people what the requirements are, the expectations, helping to hold people accountable, and then creating more opportunity for people to serve. And we'll talk about that in the weeks to come. With more opportunities to serve, there is greater potential for a person to find a role that matches their interests, their passion, talent, experience, or spiritual gifting. Rick Warren, the pastor of Saddleback Church, said God is consistent in his plan for our lives. He would not give each of us inborn abilities, temperaments, talents, spiritual gifts, and life experiences, and then choose for us not to use them. All these years, we may have been asking the wrong question. And that question is, how do I get all of these people who attend our church to serve in this limited number of volunteer roles that I have here? And individually, we might say it differently. How do I find a person out of this sea of people to serve this one unfilled role that I have in my ministry? When what we probably should have been doing is creating more opportunity for people to serve, telling people about the opportunities that exist for them to serve, and then inviting them to join us in ministry. If we do that, people are more apt to find a role that fits, as I said, their interest, passion, talent, experience, or spiritual gifting. When we do that, I think we'll be amazed at the number of people whose first connection to River City will be through serving. Now, in August, late August, early September, we're going to do what we're calling Shadow Month. This is an opportunity for us to really expand the numbers of people who are involved in serving here at River City. And it's very simple. Every volunteer asks some friend that they know here at River City who's not currently serving to just come shadow them as they serve. Then, once that's done, the leaders of your ministry, you can simply ask the shadow, hey, did you enjoy what you did today? Would you like to give it a try? And from that, a person having that kind of hands-on experience without really having a lot of things to do, high-level expectations on them as they shadow, they're more likely to say, yeah, this wasn't too bad, I'll give it a try. And by doing so, we're going to have the opportunity to connect a lot more people in service. Now, let me wrap up with a couple things here. We all win every time another person begins to serve, because a person who connects to a service opportunity will get to know more people. They're going to build relationships with other people on their team. They're going to be more likely to connect with a group. They're going to be more likely to support their church financially. And they're going to be much less likely to leave the church. And then a healthy volunteer system. Let me just state this clearly as we get ready to break into our groups. A healthy volunteer system is one that has crystal clear requirements for serving. It's one that provides for healthy accountability. It's one that creates more opportunity for more people to serve. And a healthy volunteer system grows. It grows not only in number of volunteers, but in the number of mature volunteers. So ultimately, we should have more volunteers living real life by passionately following Jesus. Let me just say to you how much I appreciate the service that you guys give. And I know Sean and Willie and Mark and Darna and Rachel and Nate and Sean and everybody else would say the same thing. We are so grateful for what you guys do as volunteers. And we try to tell you a lot, but we probably fall short. So I just want to say thank you for serving. And then I just want to pray for you as Willie comes and gets ready to give us direction for going to our groups. All right, let me pray for you. Father, I thank you for every volunteer seated in this room tonight, and for those who couldn't be here. We're grateful for them and for their service as well. And I just pray that you would bless them above and beyond what they could ever hope or imagine, that you would equip them to serve your kingdom well, and that they would be a blessing to every person that they come in contact with. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, guys.